Government holidays are probably fine.
What are the distinguishing characteristics that make one, a speech or a resolution by the Congress in support of some political message?
Well, one is literally like if we've decided federally to recognize like a federal holiday.
Okay, so suppose that Congress says we're passing a resolution, and for the period of whatever, this following sets of months, we're going to display the Ukrainian flag right next to the American flag on some in some audience.
Hold on, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have started this boss fight. 1 second.
You're good.
Give me
a second. I'm gonna mute.
Yeah. You do that. Am I supposed to break all these things before I try to kill the boss? Yes. No. Just kill the boss.
Okay, I'm back. But take your turn.
Okay. Yep, I am. Hold on. Bro, am I supposed to be doing more damage? I can't reach out. Hold on. Okay, don't go in there. Okay, sorry. Go for it. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're good. I guess I usually do this kind of questioning thing to get to because I think it's a good way to get to the bottom of stuff.
Oh yeah, we were saying that like if there's like a federal holiday, obviously it's a federal holiday, so like Martin Luther King Day and Easter, I think, and Christmas and shit. Sure. Yeah.
I want to stop doing this because I feel like I do it too much and it annoys people when I do the questioning thing. I'm just gonna. I know, but I just want to for this time. I'm just gonna try to be more affirmative and so this is what I'm seeing the disagreement.
Okay.
So I think that in your mind, there's something distinguishing artistic displays or fixed displays that are visible for people, and there's something different about flags that you wouldn't extend to the category of thing, call it joint resolutions, declarations, holidays, other kinds of displays. And so I want to know from you what is different about flags, if there is anything different. And then I want to know, like, even if there is no difference in terms of the kind of display there is, why would we be okay with something like a Ukrainian flag display, or would we not be okay with that? And then how would we distinguish that?
I think that when it comes to international issues, I think it's a bit different. I think that even if we're divided on international issues, you can make an argument for foreign flags, like the Ukrainian flag, because you would argue that the United States as a nation is standing in favor. Even if we are divided internally, we're standing united on an external front for those things. I could see there being arguments against it, though. Like that'd be a more difficult position to defend. But
there's a lot of discussion and debate about our presence in Ukraine.
Yep, I just said that. I agree with you. I just said that. But regardless of our internal debate, when we send stuff to other countries, there's no debate once the weapons are there, right? That's what the United States as a whole, however divided we might be internally, externally, is providing one source of united help, right? Mm-hmm. But when it comes to like a pride flag or some social issue flag, it's a domestic internal issue. It's not codified in law, and it's something that we are hotly contesting among ourselves right now. So I feel like that would be an inappropriate thing to place on a city council or on a state assembly or federal courthouse, or even on the White House. I think it's inappropriate because these are supposed to be symbols that uniformly represent all Americans. And why would you put a hotly contested social issue up and take a side on it when that's not? If
I'm understanding you correctly, it sounds like there's a division you'd like to propose between foreign issues and domestic issues. Or issues that are codified. I don't know if those are a combined thing or if they're the same thing. Like the fact that something is codified into a law, if it were a domestic or social issue, say for instance civil rights, would that change how you feel about some kind of civil rights? You can put in the hypothetical yourself. I don't need to go into it. Is it the codification itself, the fact that it's an act of government policy separate from the display or the speech itself?
Wait, what are you asking? What would the display be?
Okay, so I see a division in how you're treating certain issues versus others, even though they're hotly contested, right? Mm-hmm. Ukraine, hotly contested. Issues related to aspects of LGBTQ representation, hotly debated, so no difference there. But one way that you could have a difference between how you would feel about Ukrainian display and an LGBT display is by saying, one, either that the Ukrainian policy, even though it's hotly debated, it represents some kind of
hold on. What is I'm trying to figure out, what is a display you're talking about? Like what would you be displaying that you're asking?
A hypothetical Ukrainian flag display.
Oh. Okay.
That the government would have in some public space. It seemed like you would be okay with that.
Yeah, I think so. But again, that position would be more tenuous than being in favor of like an American flag or a state flag or a city flag.
But it's dispositive in the sense that if someone asks you, "Are you okay with that?" You'd be like, "I'm balanced, yeah." Not as much as I am okay with the
Sure,
American
yes,
flag,
I would be
but-
okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah, but whereas in the gay case, you'd be like, "On balance, no," and so it changes the answer. And so I would say that there is a distinction there in your mind between it. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to what that is. Is it the fact that one shows support for Ukraine because it's part of the American policy as enacted through the political process?
Yes.
Or is it because it's a foreign issue? Which one of those? Or both?
That one, because of the American policy thing or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like, and the policy surely has to be separate from the display itself. The solidarity itself is done in furtherance or to coincide with some kind of other agenda or policy done, presumably, right? Because Congress could pass a law that says we shall have the gay flag, LGBT pride flag on display, and that would be an enactment by Congress, right? Let's say the president.
I mean, if they pass a law for it, I mean, then yeah, sure. Although I'm not sure if I'd be in favor of the law, but I mean, if they pass that law, that would give them, yeah, sure.
Would you be okay? Well, then that just says that you have a problem with the process. The process is like you're not okay with some city or state government unilaterally
in the most general sense. My position is the rationale behind the position is that publicly funded property ought to be a representation of as many American people as possible. That ought to be the case. Now, in general, the process that ensures that is stuff like legislation, right? Now, if you're saying, well, hypothetically, what if we legislated that every flag in the United States had a giant thorny black dragon dildo? And I'd be like, well, that doesn't sound like a good law. That's not disproving my argument, because you're picking an issue that legislation typically would prohibit from happening because most Americans wouldn't be, like, legislation tends to map onto desires of most Americans. So if you're going to propose to me legislation that clearly doesn't map onto the desires of most Americans, I mean, I'll say that I kind of agree, kind of disagree, but your intuition pumping something there that like is obviously breaking the hypothetical. But yeah,
here's where I think I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to get to. I think that it has nothing to do, or I shouldn't say it has nothing to do. It obviously has something to do with the process and the procedure, and so you might feel differently about how something comes about. But I think that there is something about the substance that is driving what's going on. I think that if you were, suppose that the same amount of people were in support of, I don't know, racial inequality in the United States as are supporting of the Ukraine war, and there was some kind of foreign-facing agenda that coincided with inequality. We were pushing for inequality in our sisters, something like that, or reverse us back to the time of the civil rights era. I think, notwithstanding the fact that there could be widespread support for public displays affirming inequality, say a Confederate flag or something like that, the widespread or ubiquity or relative ubiquity of that thought, you'd still be against that flag, right?
The Confederate flag?
Of that being displayed, wouldn't you? You'd be against that, the Confederate flag being sort of present, notwithstanding the fact that there's a great deal of support
on public property. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I think that there's something substantive about what's going on.
I guess I'm not sure what we've hit on that's different, right? I would disagree with the Confederate flag because
you disagree with the merits of the Confederate flag.
Well, yeah, because it's like obviously that would be like a highly contentious. It's like a social issue, like activist issue that.
But if you could, well, I don't know. Is racial equality an activist issue? It was for a long time.
It could be. Things can change. Things can be activist issue.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I wouldn't say that like women voting right now is an activist issue. That's like pretty settled. But it was at one point in time. It was a very contentious issue, right? Sure. So things can change over time. Like I would have, like if you would have asked me like 5 years ago. Like I probably would have said that the pride flag is less contentious. I think even most people would agree that it's less contentious than it is now. It depends on like the social factors, I guess, or the social.
So I think that what we have going on here is that there's a group of people in this country who want to have a heckler's veto, which to describe what that is, it would be like, suppose that every time you wanted to have a pride parade in public spaces where that's allowed, someone started a riot to prevent that from happening, and so it became to be that displays of pride in the country would be coincided with public disorder and disruption because it would necessarily attend to counter protests who would cause violence. That to me sounds like a heckler's veto, where someone can stop otherwise legitimate and laudable speech from being heard.
I don't like. Yeah, I don't like the comparison though, because like we have the right.
Because there's more controversy now.
No. If you wanted to talk about like doing a protest like on like in a state courthouse sponsored by the state courthouse, we could talk about it. But if you're just talking about
I'm not. Sorry. I wasn't using that to compare the private actions taken by people in public spaces to public action taken by the state
that's what it sounded like.
I'm using that to elaborate on what the notion of a heckler's veto is. That somehow the amount of resistance that in terms of punctuated resistance, where there's a reliable chorus from, I would say, a minority that is particularly virulent or particularly violent, let's say, that should not be allowed to stop otherwise, speech that we would think is fine for the government to engage in. You just said 5 years ago you think that the pride flag would be less controversial than it is today.
I mean, if there was ever, do you think there's ever a fair time for like a heckler's veto or no? Because I feel like if there ever was, it would be displays on state property. Like, for instance, like what percentage of this country, well, here, I'm curious. How do you feel about when people fought about like having 10 commandments?
Yeah. So
because like the majority of the country is like Christian, right? When that was happening, the majority of the country might still be Christian.
For certain kinds of places and in certain kinds of proceedings, I think that what you're talking about makes a lot of sense. So, for instance, I think that it would make it would be bad for the courthouse to have a flag of Republicans or a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, because part of the expectation of a court is that you're going there to have a neutral adjudication of some kind, and that there is equality in terms of political views and that stuff within a courthouse. And then there's the extra issue related to separation of church and state and the Establishment Clause that would animate my concerns with the Ten Commandments. Obviously, the Supreme Court has emphatically and consistently ruled against my position on that, and so there's no chance of me being sort of overruled on that. I don't agree with the display on the merits because I don't agree with it. And I also think that there's a potential Establishment Clause violation, and I think that there's a problem related to the fact that it being in a courthouse might implicate some due process concerns. But all that being said, I think that it's wholly different in the political spaces. In a state, let's say City Hall, something like that. Those are the houses of the political branches. And I expect my politicians and people who are part of the political branches to be political. I expect Trump to be MAGA, and I'm sure that I would disagree with him putting a MAGA flag.
When you say you expect them to be political, I think you have to separate a little bit like ideology from process. Like I expect them to be political when it comes to process. But I don't think I would expect them to be political when it comes to ideology or partisanship. So like if a new state governor came in and they started replacing like, let's say there was like a courthouse with a bunch of paintings of like the presidents. If they took down all the Democrat ones and just kept up the Republican ones, or if they started putting up, like "Hell is for Democrats" signs on a state house, and we're like, well, I mean, it's a Republican. I expect them to be political. I would expect them to be political in that they run the political process, but not partisanship.
I just want to say, and I understand that it's different because a City Hall, there's an expectation that people can come and go, and it's different than the White House, but it's a fun example for you to bring up because literally presidents will change and arrange what is being displayed in any given point during their administration in the White House. And I agree as a matter of norm that there should be a spirit, it's a policy matter, of bipartisanship and congeniality and not doing overt acts of political animus. And I think that that's all fine. And I think that there is an interest, and the democratic process will resolve or attempt to resolve issues related to pure political animus, or you'd hope that they would resolve them. But any kind of line that we're going to draw that says categorically, I do not want any displays or only displays based on things that are not controversial, that to me seems to be too far or too much of a standard. And
that seems super fair to me. It's supposed to represent all of us. How would you feel if you were like a Christian or Muslim, like very much adhering to your faith, and then you go to your state house or your city house, public property?
All the time. Those things that happens all the time. There's displays to Now, there's specific things with respect to
Well, what do you mean when you say it happens all the time? What does that mean?
certain government property is not allowed because of the Establishment Clause. You're not allowed to have that connection with religion in the same way. But in terms of having that kind of feeling there, right? In God we trust, written above in courthouses in New York, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's cringe. I would be more arguing against that before I would be allowing the pride flag. The "In God We Trust" shit. I think it was an editor of Money in '52. That shit is cringe as fuck. But I would be more in favor of getting rid of that before allowing everything.
Yeah, but you're okay with the I guess I'm not satisfied with the line on the Ukrainian, which is like there's an official policy in Ukraine that America is just supporting by putting that flag. There could be the Congress now in a bipartisan fashion has passed a protection of gay marriage in the United States. That's an official policy in the United States. That happened in the wake of
sure, but gay marriage is not the pride flag. If you really wanted to be cheeky about it, and you wanted to make a display on public property of like posting some part of like the U.S. code or some amendment passed or whatever, then I guess you could do that. That at the very least, you're at least like that's like federal law or something if you want to do that. But that's not the pride flag.
What kind of policy could America enact that you would be okay with? When would you be okay with American displays on public property of the pride flag?
I mean, I guess like if there was a process by which a city could vote on it and people did vote and do it, then I guess at that point I'm probably okay, because then you can make my argument that like, well, this is the official city process, you're bought into the process, and that's what the process says. But I mean, I guess if there was like a public vote on it, then or a vote by your representatives, however they do that type of policy, I guess I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, you vote for your mayor, you vote for your governor, you vote for. Now, obviously, we would have problems if someone tried to put up a Confederate flag over State Hall or whatever. But I think that those would be merits.
Or I mean, if they vote for it, I guess fuck it.
But I think you would have a merits problem with that. You would say, I don't agree with what that flag represents. I think it's stupid to put. I don't think that you would say something like.
But people might say the same thing about the pride flag, right? Then you vote on it.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like they did when they voted for their governor, their mayor, whatever, or Biden or Trump, by the way, who hugged the pride flag, if you recall. Although I understand it's different. It's not a public display. It's not what we're talking about. But I'm just saying that it's not the case that there is no Republican support for the pride flag if that's sort of the standard. Though I don't think that that's what you're saying. But yeah, like here we have legitimate political processes, people who are authorized to put flags, and if people disagree, they can vote them out. And I don't understand why we should have this line of like no controversy allowed for public displays or public speech.
Okay, can you engage with that? Because you keep saying I don't see why, but you've never addressed my argument. My argument is that city council, city public property should represent as many Americans as possible, which is going to require some watered down like baseline version of like these are the very basic proper things that we believe in.
Okay, I think at some level, I agree with some version of that, especially in places where neutral adjudication or neutral processes.
Sure, I'm not even talking adjudication or necessarily processes. I'm just talking about public funding and representation. Yes.
So what I'm telling you is that for me, it's not all equal in terms of public property. Some public property, I'm going to be very against any kind of display relating to a political or social issue. And I'm just telling you that there's a disparity in what kind of public property and what kind of displays, and that will shift according to where it is and what the display is. And I think that that's true for you too, unless you disagree with that and you think it's all equal all the time.
I feel like I'm sure there's probably going to be some exception, like in a courthouse there might be like a chapel or something, in which case it'd be okay to have like Christian
but for the most part, you would say, right, like
for the most part, I would say I would hold consistent this ruling or my opinion here on across all public property. Yeah, equally. Yes. Unless there's like a public chapel or something, right? Like there might be some exception like that, but in general, yeah.
Okay. So to engage with you, I think that there's some room for, on official state government business, a need to refrain, or a policy reason that you should refrain from outwardly super contentious issues to the scale of where it's disrupting the processes of government. But the thing is, I say that out loud, but I think there's room for government to be responsive to public pressure the other way. You know, the normative desire to try to push equality. Do I want to take that away? categorically from all public displays. And why wouldn't that be the same rationale for getting rid of Martin Luther King Day back, whenever that was? I actually don't remember when.
I could be wrong, but like for federal holidays, that must be congressionally done, right?
Yeah, the president, Biden, just made Juneteenth a federal holiday. So I don't know what the process is for that.
Well, yeah. Well, the process part is probably important because I would change, because like things I'm going to give a lot of leeway to things that are passed by Congress, right? Because I'm a big procedural cuck.
But what about things passed by state legislature?
Yeah, I would say the same. Yeah, that's why I said that. Like, if you wanted to argue for the pride flag, like if there's some process by which the city council or whatever or state legislature can pass it, I'd probably be a little bit more warm to that, because part of your buy-in to a particular state or city is that you have to go pass legislation similar to taxes, I guess.
So you'd be okay with the pride flag on a government property as long as the legislature passed a law?
Yeah, I guess if a law was passed, because that's how we do things in this country. Yeah, is through passed legislation.
So what happens to your argument about what it should and the fact that the state should be neutral on public property? Why won't you just be like, no, you shouldn't even pass any laws about this stuff? I would disagree with those laws.
What, to make it like a civil, or make it like a constitutional thing that the government ought to display absolutely no?
Wouldn't you be against any law that said pride flag will be flown on Pride Month? Wouldn't you be against any law that said that?
I think right now I probably would be, but you're asking me whether I would be against something is different than, like, I'm also against the high taxes in California, but I pay them when I was there.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so wait, are you asking me, like, would I personally be in favor of it, or would I follow
you're
it?
A senator.
Yeah.
You're a senator in U.S. Congress, and there's some senator has proposed, and for the Congress to consider, a law that would make it required for the pride flag to be flown near Congress on Pride Month. Are you voting in favor of that law or against that law?
I might vote in favor of it.
Bro, you're in favor of pride flags. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, you're asking me different questions. Do you understand?
No, but come on, if you're saying that you would vote for having a pride flag over, you're just saying it's a process issue. And
yeah,
I'm actually in support of it.
But if it hasn't been voted on, then I probably wouldn't be in favor of it, right?
Okay.
You understand? You're asking me like a different.
Yeah, but you're saying that you're
asking me like, would you personally vote for a particular thing? And I say, yeah. Oh, well, then you must be in favor of that thing being done right now. Well, no, it hasn't been voted on yet, right?
But you would be in favor of if that vote were to occur, and if someone were to ask you your political policy position, it would be, I would vote for a law that would do it. I just don't agree with the process in which it's been put up. I think that's been
sure, but I mean, like, when we talk about like governmental like things, the process is really important.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So if a city or a state had done a vote on these are the flags that we're going to fly in this particular thing, right? If that's a process that exists, part of your social contract in living in a particular city, state, or country is that you must abide by the legislation that's there. That's part of your buy-in for the thing or whatever. Yeah. So I mean, like, if they pass a law saying that there's a particular thing you have to do, then I mean, you have to.
But hang on a second. Yeah. Now if there were the same policy or law being considered, but instead of the pride flag, it's a Confederate flag, would you vote in favor or against it?
Well, I vote against that because I don't believe in the Confederate shit, right?
It's all a process argument.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, then I think we.
I don't think I ever had a different position though.
I think you were against it because you thought it was cringe.
No. I don't. Well, the new pride flag is cringe, but the rainbow one is fine. But like, no, I'm against it because of. I didn't even say I was against it because you were cringe. The original argument I gave you, I'll repeat it now for the second or third time. The original argument I gave you was that city or state houses should represent the public in probably the most base way possible, fundamental way possible. That should probably be what they're limited to. Not based, but like base fundamental way. That probably should be what they have. If they want to change the types of things that they represent, if you want to make a change the types of flags you have, I guess you can do that. But as long as it's done via like legislation, like some process by which the city, state, or federal government agrees, like, this is how we decide like which flags to hang or which things to do or whatever.
Okay, I think that's a position that I respect. If you're saying like, I just don't agree with governors doing it or the president's doing it unilaterally, or
sure, like how would you feel about like so for instance, you're okay with the government, you're okay with the Biden display of the pride flag at the White House, right?
Yes.
How would you feel about Trump doing a MAGA flag?
I wouldn't be okay with that.
Why? I think that you have more justification for the MAGA flag than the Pride flag, because Trump literally won the election, which is arguably MAGA, but the gay Pride didn't win any elections. So I think you have a stronger argument for the MAGA flag being flown to the White House than the Pride flag. So how do you?
For me, it's at that point, it's a merits argument. I disagree with MAGA, and I'm in favor of Pride.
Oh, so you don't care about the process at all. You literally just it's the thing you like.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
I think that it's legitimate for. I just agree that the executives that you elect, right, the governor, the mayor, that these people are also legitimate individuals and offices by which the electorate can make their political, views known.
But everything you just said hardcore supports my argument, because there's a bigger support for quote unquote MAGA flags, because they voted literally for MAGA Trump than there are for gay Pride flags, which is not necessarily what you voted for Biden.
But let me be clear. Okay. I support the fact that elected officials take their own views on political issues and make displays corresponding to their views and what they think is right.
I'm still waiting for how this gets away from the MAGA
in a powers question, right? And in terms of who has the legitimacy to do this, right? I'm not in support, and I think you would not be in support either, of some random guy going up and putting the flag, correct? So before you seem to have a problem with the president just putting the Pride flag up. Agreed? You wanted that to be a congressional.
Yeah, but I'm holding the same answer for the Pride flag and the MAGA flag. But you seem like you said you were okay with the Pride flag. But I'm hanging.
I'm going. So I disagree with that fundamental point, because I think the president is also answerable to the people through his election. And so I'm okay with just the president putting up the Pride flag as a powers question. Now, but that's not enough to solve the question about whether I'm going to support it, right? The fact that he has the power to do it.
Well, no. I'm not asking if you support the flag.
I'm getting there.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Just because I agree with a particular office's authority to hoist political symbols doesn't mean that I agree with how that power is used in every case. And so in the case of Biden putting up the flag, I both agree that his office has the authority and legitimacy to put up that display and where it's being displayed, and I agree with the flag he's putting up. Both are required for me to think that it's a legitimate display. And so in the Trump case, I agree. He's a duly elected president, and he has every entitlement and right to make his views known in the sense of legitimacy as a powers question. But I disagree with the display. And so that's where I would distinguish.
So then ultimately the process by which you decide if a flag can go up or not is if you agree with it?
I think that in terms of political,
because I'm understanding you're giving me two requirements. One is that they follow the process to do it, and you think they automatically have that ability to do it just by virtue of being the executive. And then the second is if you agree with the flag. It's not like those are the two conditions you gave.
How I'm going to agree with a particular political display, I guess I'll add a third criteria there, but the first one is, do you have the authority to do it? That would be the president or Congress. I think both in different spheres and in different moments have authorities, and in the state equivalents and state analogs have their equivalents. And then the third thing would be, does it violate some strong constitutional norm, either with respect to the due process and administration of law in a courthouse, something similar, or the separation of church and state, those kinds of principles, versus is it not implicating those concerns? So those are the kind of the three big criteria. And to just give you an example, right? If Donald Trump and George Bush wanted to pursue an agenda of abstinence-only sex education, that's their prerogative, right? They were elected. They can go across the country and start making that their agenda. If they want to talk about how important Christian values are,
we're way off now. I don't think we're talking about what they can go around the country and talk about. That's fine. They can do whatever they want. But I'm asking for hanging flags on the White House. What would be the thing that would make it not okay for you? Where you're saying that are you saying Trump should be allowed to hang the MAGA flag, but you disagree with it? Or are you saying he shouldn't even be allowed to?
I think Trump should be allowed to display the MAGA flag. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. You just don't want to.
But I disagree with it. Well, I wouldn't allow him to put it in the Supreme Court, right? There would be. But
you would allow him to put it on the White House.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I would disagree with that. I'd say it's horrible. It's gaudy. I disagree with that. I think it's a message
that's fine.
of hate.
But I'm just saying, okay.
Yeah. But how do you disagree?
Well, because I wouldn't want. I don't think that there's like a political flag like that. I don't think belong unless there's like we pass legislation to do it. Yeah, go.
But if there was Republican Congress, and if they passed a law that said it shall be the policy of the United States, so long as the president approves, to display the MAGA flag during whatever time, in the White House, and they pass a law, president signs it. You're still against the president doing that.
No, if they I mean, like, I wouldn't like it, but I would be.
Yeah, you're against it.
Hold on, you're using this word in such a weird way. You're against it. Like, I'm against the death penalty, but I'm for the state enacting powers that are like legislated to execute people.
You don't think they should have done that thing. You don't agree with them having passed that law. You are against them having passed that law. And signing it.
I guess I'm asking if you think that they ought to have the power to do so. Not like if you personally agree with it.
I've said that I think that and you agreed, at least with respect to Congress, that they should have the power to do it. Because you said, I would agree with them if they passed the law.
Yeah, but I'm saying absent any law, Biden seems to be able to place the pride flag. Do you think absent any new laws, Trump should have been able to? Not do you agree with it, not do you worship MAGA.
I'm saying, do you think should?
Okay, you do think
with the limit, with the constitutional limits that I've spoken about, which are high thresholds. I agree, they're high thresholds. I would say that that's a matter of deference for the political branches to decide, and that I can disagree with any particular display because I disagree with the merits of it. But there's no big way to distinguish the pride flag versus the MAGA flag in that respect, except by substance. And I think that it would be silly to separate Congress's role from the chief executive's role, since they're both answerable to the people ultimately. And really, I would think of this more as the executive's role in terms of like what flags, what pictures, what art to display. I think that's historically, executives both in the state and federal level have done that.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else?
It's a good combo, bro. No.
Wait, peace.